CRM 2011 Architecture and Methodologies. The CRM 2011 architecture abstracts the database. While we can access the database directly using filtered views, the actual file structure of an entity is very different than the representation within the database. Because of this, direct access to the database is unsupported. CRM must have full control to be able to create and delete columns within the database, and therefore customizations to CRM will cause an impact to the database that could break programs that access it directly. Also, direct access to the database would be bypassing CRM security. So again, the only direct access to the database that's supported is the use of filtered views for read access. Everything else should go through the n-tiered architecture and specifically using the WCF web services. CRM also supports processes in the form of dialogues and workflows, which are very powerful and allow us to automate many functions. Plugins can also extend the CRM architecture by plugging into events when database changes occur. Client applications extensions are supported as well that allow us to add scripting and other powerful tools to enhance the user interface. And there's a number of reporting tools available as well. Here's a diagram from the Microsoft Dynamics CRM 2011 SDK that outlines the extensibility architecture of CRM. At the very bottom is the metadata and data, which is actually stored in a single database known as the organization database. When you back up this one database, you have all of the contents of a CRM deployment. Direct access to the database happens in two ways, either through filtered SQL views or through the data access platform. As we work our way up through the stack, you'll notice that security is pervasive and goes along every level. Data access components lay on top of the data access platform, business entity components lay on top of that, and finally synchronous and asynchronous business logic lay on top of that. Any plugins we extend with CRM programming exist at this layer between the synchronous and asynchronous business logic but beneath the web services. You'll notice that workflow ties in on the side and speaks to whatever level it needs to, but again, not directly to the database. Web services are the premier way to access CRM. You'll notice that back-end integration from servers to servers happens this way. The application itself, the clients, the web client, the Outlook client, the mobile client, all accessed through web services. All form and client-side events, ribbons, sitemap, web resources, and JavaScript libraries operate through the web services. Reporting supports dashboards, charts, Excel, and SSRS reports. Depending upon what's being used, it may go through the web services layer, or it may use filtered views. CRM 2011 methodologies need to be considered. The reason for this really is that the ease of use of this platform provides both benefits and issues that we need to seriously consider. The fact that it is so easy to go in and add a field to a form and add it to the database at the same time can sometimes cause issues with good database design. We see this happen a lot when you have users who are customizing their CRM implementation but don't have a clear understanding of the best ways to organize the data to retrieve it. They're also trying to minimize the number of forms they go through, so they'll have a tendency to put too many fields in a particular entity when it should have a child entity created. Therefore, there is a strong need for a structured methodology. You do need to consider appropriate database design. You should understand the existing entity structure and usage out of the box. It's also important to understand the restrictions and enhancements that Microsoft has made on certain entities, such as the contact, the account, quotes, orders, invoices, and cases. So it's good to understand the existing entities before you attempt to repurpose them to something else. Quite frankly, if you're in doubt as to whether or not you should create a new entity rather than repurpose one, create a new entity. You can always delete it later if it turns out not to be appropriate. The other thing to consider is that it's really good to customize before the programming. The customization can carry you a long way, and it can be used for very strong prototyping, as you'll see in the next slide. Remember also that security affects users and what they see. So the data filtering based upon what profiles a user account is associated with directly affect the data records they will see. So you may not have to filter out unnecessary data for a user, and you can count on security to do that for you. In addition, security roles dictate which entities and functions are even presented to a user. Be aware that if a role does not grant read access to a particular entity to a user, that entity will not be reflected in the UI anywhere for that user to see. And then finally, performance is a major consideration, as this powerful platform automates so many tasks that it's easy for us to overload the system and make customizations that can have performance impact. Let's discuss a potential developmental method. CRM 2011 really lends itself to prototyping. One proposed method of development would be to design your initial data model and then model it in CRM in entities, relationships, and attributes. Next, you can go and prototype forms, views, charts, and dashboards within the UI itself. The beauty is that you're doing this in CRM and you're not doing this in Visio, that you can reuse this work because you now have the forms designed. If customers want changes, they're simple to make. Finally, after we've got an approved UI and the customer is happy with the way everything looks, we can now take our prototype and go back in and build in the back-end plugins, scripts, and workflows after that approval has been granted, thus reducing the amount of start-overs that have to happen in writing code.